All right, we are officially back. And did you know that sleep can increase insight, problem solving? In fact, a classic nature study found that sleep increased the likelihood of gaining insight on a specific task. Remarkable, right? For those of you that are new here, my name is Michael Hicks. I own the Live to Thrive podcast, and I also help men, CEO men, businessmen, faith-based men to really uncover their inner household CEO. And today's podcast is not it's really going to really help you understand that there's a lot always going on in our head, right? And in a good way, right? And sometimes in a messy way. And today's podcast is really going to bring you the smarter way to de-stress so that you can sleep well. And I'm going to give you some of the things that work for me successfully and to really kind of create a plan for you to stop overthinking. So this is more strategic today than fear. In fact, let's say that again, and you will meet that version of you when you can actually get a full night's rest, right? I talked to so many people, they're like, oh, I barely get any sleep. I get 4 hours of sleep and I'm good. No, you're not. And while you're asleep, your brain is not shut off. Did you know that? And while you're asleep, it's sort of sorting out, it's organizing, it's connecting the dots. And that's why it's so important to script an hour before you go to bed so that you can get a restful, peaceful night's rest. It's also not only asleep or shut off, it is processing emotion and it's also building patterns. So if you've been stuck in anxious mode, in overwhelming mode, in uncertainty mode, and maybe even you're spiraling in your mind, it's going crazy and you're replaying conversations and maybe you're second guessing decisions that you made. This episode is going to be for you today. Today we're going to talk about why your brain solves problems while you dream and while you're asleep, and how it actually harnesses it with my Live to Thrive approach, which is the mind, the body, and the soul. And yes, we're going to actually add some faith components to this, a lens that, because I believe you have been called, or you call it rather, overthinking, yet what you're actually dealing with is what I call spiritual fatigue and even mental warfare. So here's the question for all of my listeners today. What if the breakthrough you kept begging for is on the other side of you finally getting the right kind of rest? If you're into that stuff today, let's listen to more. Let's get into it right now. And here we go. This isn't the woo, this is the science and the wisdom. All right. Research. I'm big on this, and you can even speak to my now fiance about this. Is sleep is such it's like a date. Like I plan it. Like I seriously plan it. And when I don't get the proper rest, I'm not my best self. And I cannot help my best clients, my VIP clients, and my clients that I have in my webinars and my cohort programs and all that fun stuff. So research has shown that sleep can facilitate insight and restructuring. Basically, what it's saying is helping people see solutions in different ways after they get a good night's rest. And modern findings actually point to sleep rhythms and memory processes that strengthens, are you ready for this? That strengthens performance and creative connections when we have that proper rest. Now, I'm also going to keep it real transparent and real mirror honest is what I say, is sleep doesn't magically solve every type of insight problem. Some tasks, it doesn't show the same boost. So we're not going to be worshiping sleep, even though a lot of us like to, right? Especially when we were younger. I had to get like as a teenager, 12 hours of sleep is unreal. Anyway, we're going to use it as a tool. And that's going to be the Live to Thrive approach today. Not hype, just real, true alignment. And I knew this was a critical piece for all of my listeners today because you posted comments. That was probably one of the most viewed segments, shorts that I had was talking about this point. So I want to get into some of the areas where you're actually feeling stuck in. And I also want to talk a little bit about what I see with my clients, and maybe this hits you, and maybe this is your sign for some change. So if you cannot decide due to the fact that you are attempting to predict every outcome, is that you? Like indecisiveness, right? Or maybe you start a plan and then for whatever reason something stressful hits you and then you fall off. Or maybe you are constantly be mindful of what you say I am to. I did an entire podcast on that episode as well. I don't know which one it is, but when you say you're tired, however, you won't rest because you feel guilty. That is me. I feel like with being a business owner, I rest is really difficult for me, and I as a 53-year-old man, I just recently went to an ankle specialist and I have micro tears on my right Achilles. And it has really limited my ability to run. I like to usually run a mile before all my workouts, and that has really limited me. So I had to do elliptical and the jumping and the bounding and the explosive movements because it's really tender and it's actually got a nodule on it. And the doctor said, "Yo, Michael, you got to rest. You have to rest." And I generally feel guilty on that. Is that you? So the other thing is you tend to be productive, yet your mind is constantly noisy, right? Okay, good. If that's you, let's keep going here. Or maybe you call yourself spiritual or in alignment with your creator, yet you feel mentally and maybe even spiritually attacked. Or maybe you say, "Yeah, I'm capable," yet my mind is always scattered, right? That's not necessarily a personal flaw. I call it a system problem. So let's get a little bit more detailed into that. When sleep is disrupted, your emotional regulation gets weaker. That's why you should never be making decisions when you are feeling exhausted or tired. And that's when your decision making skills, for lack of a better word, gets noisier. And then your discipline then starts to maybe feel like it's suffering. All right. And when you feel tired, your brain does this crazy thing. It really becomes dramatic, right? I know usually on Fridays I am spent. I'm exhausted, and when you feel tired, your brain becomes dramatic, and it makes small problems feel like large ones, like the big giant, right? The jolly green giant, right? Maybe I'm dating myself on that plug there. So the question isn't how do I think harder? The question is how do I set up my mind to think better? And what are you doing to create that process? So I want to break this down even simpler. And I want to go into how sleep actually helps problem solve and just basic language. And during the day, what usually happens, right? You're constantly gaining information, right? Or gathering, I should say. And most of us should be gaining information by continually growing. If you haven't opened up the book or a Bible, you're not growing. So maybe you should tune me out or continue to listen to how to change that. So, however, during the day, we're constantly bombarded by hashtags, by instant information, and at night what happens is your brain actually begins to file it, and when you begin to file it, what the sleep then does, it helps consolidate those memories and recognize the actual information. Okay. And not only recognize it, reorganize that information. And that can, what that does then, and it create, you ever like, you're like, oh, I'm just going to think about it. And you go to bed one night and then you wake up the next morning, you just have an answer. And you did some praying across that world as well, or across that piece as well. And that creates insight. So then like suddenly you have this solution, which you didn't see when you were facing it or forcing the problem, so to speak. Right. And here's the wild part that we often tend to forget about is, oh, I got a piece of hair here on my face. So the insight is this, is the doorway stage of sleep, that they call this the N1, right? And it's the half awake and half dreaming zone, right? So it's been linked, statistics show this, it's been linked to creative and new solutions. So if you can get to that point, you're going to get or larger insight on that. So the real takeaway to what I just talked about is sometimes the best strategy is, are you ready? Stop grinding and start resting. You need intention. You need structure and sleep. And in the New York Times talked about this, and I'm bringing it back here, is why we sleep is described as focuses, or let me say that again. Why we sleep is described as a New York Times bestseller on focusing on sleep plus dreams. Now, the sleep resolution, or revolution rather, is described as, many would even say it could be a New York's best-selling book that emphasizes on sleep impact on decision making and performance. And when you here's the other side to this, is we often hear the word balance. Now, balance in itself, like sleep doesn't help every type of insight problem. Okay. I think prayer helps with that, but that's an entirely different episode for my podcast. So some studies find no benefit depending on task type and conditions. So what we do is we use sleep as a tool to overcome and really grasp those things and get better awareness in that area. I hope that makes sense. Because I have so many thoughts creeping in my head as I'm going here. So I want to get into a little bit on the actual theology perspective here. And I want to get a little biblical for most of us is God never, when you have a relationship with him, and I was just having this conversation with my fiance about this, because we've been having some really hard conversations as we move forward into marriage. And one of the things that I was talking about is my relationship with God. And in that relationship, now I'm going off task here, but I think this is relevant for where I'm going here, is I think my relationship is constantly getting better with him. It is unbelievable. I don't even have the words sometimes to speak about this, because when I ask for something and it's truly needed, he has blessed me. And it speaks about it clearly in the Bible. Ask and you will receive. But then the other side to that is, you will receive if you're opening the Bible daily and you're spending 20 to 30 minutes reading and then full of prayer. And I just told this to a client of mine, is are you, and I'll get to the sleep here in a second here, but I think this is relevant for what I'm talking about here, is I left one of my clients, he's struggling. He's in a storm, a multiple storms. He's one of my VIP clients. And I said to him, because when all these things happen and then we don't have the self-auditing mechanisms to catch it, right? Before it then starts spreading in our entire body and then it gets into our heart and then we speak the words and now we're in trouble. But what I want to say is, I want you to practice this. It's gratitude. And the gratitude piece is praising God 12 times a day in 12 different ways. It's a hard one to do. 12 times a day in 12 different ways. All right. So spiritually, God generally speaks to us most of the time quietly. And he never speaks to us in the chaos. He often speaks when we're quiet enough to hear that knock on the door, right? And then knock on the door, then you make the decision because you have free will to open the door. And scripture is full of moments where sleep, dreams, and night watches were really meaningful. You remember when Jesus goes, I think it's to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he prays, and his disciples fall asleep, right? And Jesus is upset with that. And this is about before he's about to be crucified. And um, I want to go talk about some things on why I think sleep is so important. And Joseph received guidance through our dreams. There's a pastor that I follow. I forgot what his name is, but he leads Lion's Heart Church, and you got to check his stuff out because I'm nowhere near this. But a lot of the stuff that he talks about God does talk to us in dreams and gives us guidance in dreams, and that's how we use them. Daniel Daniel interpreted dreams, right? There's a whole story about that, and there was one where a Christian king brought in a witch to interpret king dreams, and there's a whole that's a great. I don't know the chapter offhand, but that's a excellent one too, where it talks about that. Stay away from that kind of stuff, is what I'm telling you. But and also Job speaks to how God can instruct people in the nighttime. I want to give you a Bible passage from Job, and it's basically paraphrased, but it's around I think chapter 33, and it's 14 through 18. I'm just going to summarize it. It says God speaks in dreams to turn people from the pit and then to guide them. And I'm not saying every dream that we have is prophecy. Okay. Sometimes we often forget about some of the dreams that we've had and we're like, oh, that was such an amazing dream. And then we forget about them. But I'm saying that God has designed rest as a channel for renewal, for clarity, for direction. And I'm going to be fully transparent is a lot of us don't get enough sleep and you struggle. And then you're irritable to your family, your kids, the people that you love. And then the work that you do on your job is struggles. You struggle with it. So I'm going to be clear here. You don't need a new plan. You may need more restored rest with your mind, right? So as I transition to this next part is I want to give you a word from our sponsor. You can't sleep, you got the aches and pains, you've got to check out this CBD oil, which is Amos tested. It is proven formula. It's for aches and pains. It's for sleep. How ironic that I'm talking about this today. It's just a remarkable piece that it's just comes as a little tube, and you take some droplets, you put it underneath your tongue, and you will sleep like a baby. All right. You take 9 to 10 drops underneath your tongue an hour before you go to bed. It relaxes you. It's proven formula. It's CBD oil. It's Amish tested. And in fact, if you right now want to receive that product, you can go to superfungummies.com. The only product that you'll get 50% off there, though, is the CBD oil. It comes in 3 different sizes, and you pick the size that you want, put it in your shopping cart, and then go to the promo code and type in New Heights. That's the capital N, New Heights. And then you get 50% off at checkout. So here is the live to thrive way to harness this without turning it into a make-believe world. So I'm going to call this the Live to Thrive Dream to Decision Protocol, where this is going to be a teachable place. This is going to be a measurable situation. So if this is the part where you can really take some notes and really do some scripting, that'll really help you here is, all right, so step one, and jot this down. This is the prompt. This is the one problem. So before bed, write one sentence, just one sentence. I talked about this earlier about scripting. The problem I want clarity on is bang, fill in the blank. I don't want you to have 10 problems. I don't want you to have 5. I just want you to summarize it down to one. Often, so many of my clients that come to me, they want to see the big picture. And I always say, can you, and they can never see what they don't know what to do. They come in uncertainty, want the unclarity and struggling maybe in their household, and they don't know which direction to go to because they're really struggling and unfulfilled. And I always say, can you see the first step? And they say yes. And that's all you need to take. So writing down the problem I want clarity on is fill in the blank. All right, step 2. These are called the 3 clues. CLUES, clues, not cues, clues. And this right here, you're going to write down in your journal, again, scripting, right? 3 facts that you know about this situation. All right. 3 things you've been assuming about the situation. So we have no facts there, right? And then 3 actions that you can take regardless of the outcome. When you do this, immediately your nervous system is going to get quieter. All right. The third step here is this. You have to have what I call sleep protection, and you need to measure this. All right. Your goal is, I don't often get perfect sleep here as a 53-year-old man. I don't often do that. And but what I want to tell you is you got to get what I call protected sleep. Okay. So you need, at minimal, I know weekends can be different for most of us, but you need to have the majority of the time the same bedtime window. I'm going to say 4 to 5 nights a week. Okay. That's the big challenge. Now, and this is again the sleep protection. All right. And I don't always do a really good job of this either. And I can tell when my sleep is bothered by this. All right. But then the next piece is you need to turn off your or your screen should be in another room. A minimum, I tell my clients an hour, but a minimum of 30 minutes before you go to bed. And this has got, again, to be 4 to 5 nights a week. And then the sleep protection, the third one for step 3 is alcohol. No alcohol within, I'm going to say, 3 hours before you go to bed. And if you're struggling with alcohol, I'm not your coach. I have an awesome coach that can certainly help you out in that area. I actually had him on my podcast. His name is Harry. And he is an amazing man who is a recovering alcoholic. And now he helps. It only occurs when you want it to change and you recognize that there's a problem. All right. Step 4. This is critical. I call this the morning capture. All right. Again, taking notes. This is step 4. So when you wake up, before you put your feet on the edge and the side of the bed, before it hits the ground and you start running, are you thanking Jesus for another day? I always say this: Lord Jesus, thank you for this day. I am healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm full of abundance. And I also say, Lord, thank you for giving me 5 new VIP clients for my business. Now, do not touch your phone the first thing you do when you wake up. Oh, but it's my alarm clock. That's the problem. Should not have a cell phone in your room at night. No blue devices. None. I got to switch that with my daughter. She's got her iPad in her room at night. She doesn't look at it, but No screens at all. So they should be in a different room. So an hour before you go to bed, an hour when you wake up, no phones. Here are the 5 lines I want you to write. What was the last image or story I remember? All right, this is scripting, first hour of the day. Okay. The second question is, what emotion did I feel from that? The third is, what does this remind me of? Number 4 is, what is the next step or the next right step that I can do right now today? And then the last one is, what do I need to release today? And that right there is what I call your daily clarity training. Now, how long do you want to do this? Great question. I would do this for 5 mornings before the next week ends. 5 mornings. And you are going to see a remarkable change in your sleep patterns. You're going to get a deeper sense of sleep, and you're going to be more fulfilled and more of you during the course of the day. And if you are, please drop me a comment, a suggestion on what you did. I would love to hear from you. And if you want any coaching of any types, one-on-one, I have VIP opportunities. I have cohorts available, which is a mastermind class. I have opportunities for you. You can just go to michael@live2thrive.com. That's LIV, the number 2, thrive.com, and share with me what you've done. But if you do want more information on any of this stuff that we've been talking about, I do have an application that I do bring out to you first before I bring you on as a client. So, measurable goal, again, doing those 5 mornings for the next week. All right. So, you ever take power naps? Right? So, I'm going to call this the N1 power nap. There's research around the N1 stage that they call this weird word. It's called the hypnagogic zone. I probably mispronounced that. I don't know really a lot. I like to call it the N1 zone. So, but this is where the boosting of creativity occurs from. So I'm going to give you a safe, simple version on how to do this. And I have been taking a lot of naps, not a lot, but the last week, probably 2 or 3 naps in the evenings, like 5-ish. Sometimes even one night it was almost 6:30. It was kind of late, but a 10 to 20 minute nap window, like, truly changes your life. And when you do that, take maybe a pen or a highlighter and hold it in your hand while you're maybe sitting safely or laying down. And then as you drift, if it drops and wakes you, this is actually, somebody did this and I don't remember who did it, but you hold on to it. And when it drops and wakes you, you can then have your journal or your script next to you, capture what you were thinking. I forgot who did this, but this was a remarkable idea. This was probably a long time ago. This man did this, but he invented something, and I don't know what it was. So I apologize to all my listeners out there. But I've used this tactic and this technique because it does work, and it's not magic. It's just what it does. It catches your brain right at that creative doorway, right? So maybe if you're a parent and you have crazy work hours, don't make this complicated. Just protect your night's sleep first. All right. Okay. I want to share with you some client stories, and I really like these because it kind of shares with you some of the clients and some of their struggles that's real. And I've watched 3 of my clients that I've coached go from uncertainty in their specific field to clarity to momentum because we installed a lot of systems that had structure. And life will never get easier. If you ever think it's going to get calmer and clearer and slow down, it's never going to do that. So you're just going to elongate the problem even more. I want to share with you one particular story that really sticks with me a lot. I remember, I'm going to give you his name because he has worked with me and I have him for testimonials, but his name is Tim. Tim came to me with pressure, performance demands, uncertainty, and we built this rhythmic decision standard system that incorporated mental training. Within the 10 months that he worked with me, he did take a little bit of break. Yeah, about 6 to 7 months. 6, 7. Am I supposed to do that now? In the 6 or 7 month period, due to some issues that he had to take care of. But what happened was, what's really cool here is his career trajectory. It jumped from a project engineer into a senior and lead level engineer with more responsibility. Now, that didn't happen because he got lucky. It happened because he started operating like the man who could carry that next level. He didn't have the tools to do that. He'd go into these meetings and he didn't know what to say, how to say it. He was mute. He never spoke for himself. So I helped him build that. And I've seen clients who were actually aspiring from social pressure and maybe some even abusive dynamics and tactics, or they had job loss and they regained clarity, not by panicking and ignoring and closing the door. Yet I help them implement small, repeatable system standards that change those perspectives. So here's the real enemy here, y'all. And this is the sleep sabotage. How many are like, man, I sleep sabotage all the time, Michael? Well, I want to name the thieves that are causing this. And this may be some really strong pain points that I'm alluding to, and it might be you. And if it's you, drop it in the comments. I want to know what it is, which one is your thief. But alcohol is used to turn the mind off. It dulls the mind. It numbs the mind. Why we drink alcohol? I don't know. It's social. I don't know what else to do. But buy a protein soda. I know they're hard to find, but you could get them on TikTok Shop or you can go to Amazon. I'm not plugging any by any means, but Bucked Up makes a great protein soda, and I generally do that in social events. I don't drink very often. The other one is, which is a sleep sabotage thief, I call it, is doom scrolling. Right? You just right? Oh yeah. Right? So the other one is, you ever get like revenge thoughts at night? Like, man, they did me wrong, right? Yeah, I feel you. That's a sleep sabotage thief. And maybe you're planning something late night and you're still on emails at 8:30 at night, or something is full of anxiety and it's constantly going in your head. It's called a sabotage thief. And then the other one is, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or better yet, I'll sleep when I'm done. Mindset. So, man, that's a whole new different podcast episode, but I hope that's not you. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I used to say that when I was younger, or I knew someone and then I picked it up and I was like, why? Like, why? And if any of those are you, that's not random. What it is, it's your brain actually attempting to self-medicate. And you know what it's costing you? It's costing you poor emotional control of your life, which is your family, right? It gives you worse cravings. You have less discipline. I know when I don't get proper sleep or I feel exhausted, the cravings that I have are insane. And then I'm just gorging it with junk food. And you also have weaker decision-making skills. So sleep isn't just rest, y'all. It's an actual form of leadership in your household, in your job, with your career, with your friendship, you name it. So I want to leave you as I'm getting close to end this episode today is I want to tie in some faith-based and some discipline tie-ins with scripture and give you a better perspective here. So Proverbs 4 verse 23 says, "Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Sleep is one of the best ways you can guard your heart and your mind. 2 Corinthians 6 verse 19 through 20 says, "Your body matters, and so does your stewardship." And I'm paraphrasing this. It says your stewardship matters. So when you protect your sleep, you're not ever being lazy. You're just being responsible. In fact, God rested on the seventh day. It's okay to rest. So, all right. If you've been listening to today's podcast and you're thinking, Michael, I get it. I just do not have the follow through to go through a quality sleeping pattern or to work with you exclusively or whatever it is. That's the difference between, how can I say this? That's the difference between information and transformation. And this is exactly what I do inside Live to Thrive. What I do is I take what you know, all right, hence the application piece. I build a system that works for you, that will be automatic, and it's full of weekly rhythms, accountability, mindset training, understanding how to implement boundaries, and an execution plan. And if you really want help installing this into your real, actual detoured life, just send me the word right now, reset. You can do it right down here in the comments and tell me which area you want to improve on. Well, what is it? Is it better sleep? Is it discipline? Is it I feel disconnected from my partner? Is it anxiety? Is it business focus? Is it health? Is it relationships? And then I'll tell you how we can create that next step. So, I want to give you some questions before I leave and exit the podcast today, this episode, because I and drop them in the comments because I think these can be really vital. If you don't want to put them in the comments, you can email me at Michael at Live to Thrive. That's LIV, the number 2, and then thrive.com. So, what problem are you taking to sleep? Maybe tonight or any other night? The second question is, what time do you actually shut your brain off? Or what do you do the last 30 minutes before you go to bed at night? Do you wake up tired, fatigued, maybe unmotivated? Tell me about that. Or the last question I want to leave you with is what's one decision you keep delaying because of uncertainty? So I want to be very clear here that sleep is one of the most underused tools for emotional certainty, emotional control, discipline, creativity, purpose, peace. So if this really resonated with you, the simple thing is this. Take one problem that you have, just talking to a VIP client. Take it to God. Pray about it. And after you asked him for a solution, after that, gratitude. 12 different ways, 12 different times during the course of the day. Then write it down, script it, release it, and then rest. And then the next morning, capture what comes into your brain. I hope that made sense. My name is Michael Hicks, and I am the founder and owner of Live to Thrive, which helps you uncover and become your best person and version of yourself with your mind, your body, and soul. Please please subscribe, share this with somebody maybe who is tired of overthinking. And I will see you on the next episode. And make sure though, your brain becomes dramatic when you're tired. And sometimes the best strategy is just to stop grinding and rest with more intention. Because here's the deal, sleep isn't lazy. I believe in my 50s, sleep is actually leadership. And it's not random. It's clarity that is built with that is clarity can be built with a trained system. So your mind doesn't need a new plan. It needs a restored system. And without further ado, my name is Michael Hicks. I am the host with the most. And as always, 1% better in mind, body, and soul. And always stay flexed.